Hey everybody, welcome back to Tomcat Zone. We're going into game turn 7, the AM cycle, and game day 3. Just to bring up a couple screens here real quick. So game day 7, or game turn 7, starts a new day, and the screen underneath here, this first map we're going to look at is kind of the setup real quick. Before I go into the setup, I just want to introduce another screen real quickly to you. And this is what I do. I'm a spreadsheet guy in real life, so I like to do things that make life easy. This is my spreadsheet that I created for the Indian Ocean War. Gameplay notes over here as we went through each day, all the random events and all of the notes of the starting of each game day. Then I created this page here that was Soviet kills, all units that he killed, all unloads that he has in the upper right. If he uses nukes, the first player to use nukes automatically gives the other side 100 victory points. Air bases destroyed. All these points, both here in the kill, translate over to the kill column, and then add up to this number here inside the victory point total. So he's got 350 victory points by game turn 7. And then on the US page, we have 513 this is of course at the end of the game. All these this isn't a day by day or game turn by game turn accumulation that you're seeing here. This is actually the end results of everything. So air units killed, ships sunk, okay, victory points achieved, nukes used, destroyed air bases, and so forth to the final victory page there. What you saw there, although might give you an idea, but bottom line is US points 513 are subtracted from Soviet points 350 to give you a total on this page. Now watch what happens if hypothetically we achieved 150 points here, just to show as an example. It switched to an Allied marginal victory. Okay, so everything translates over. I like to make spreadsheets, and so this is what I made for us to track our game as we go. Move that off the screen because we don't need that anymore, but I just wanted to show it to you. Recommend it if you like to make spreadsheets. Hey, why not? It's fun to do. Anyway, we start the AM cycle here, and the results of our tests were good for me. I can tell you when I needed it to happen, it came along, and so let's look at what happened here. First of all, we go through the random events, and as I said, weather phase is always after the random events, but we flip-flop that because, again, weather can determine where you can place your strategic markers if you when you roll for satellites. Bottom line, we did roll for our satellites. I rolled higher than 4 and got no satellite detections this turn. He rolled a 2 and got a 1. So he got 1 satellite detection for the turn. I rolled for weather, and it came up a 9, which, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. It came up a 9, so we got a misleading chart here. On the weather table, 9 is storms. Once we roll for storms, we then roll for the zones, and I rolled a 6. So Bay of Bengal, India, North Arabian Sea, Gulf of Aden, and the South Arabian Sea are now blanketed in storms. Now, what's that mean? Storms are great. Storms are great for defensive purposes. In a storm zone, all detection markers are removed. No aircraft can launch. No aircraft can fly into attack. Aircraft can fly from one zone and fly over a storm zone, but they can't do anything within the storm zone, which is great. Submarines cannot detect surface ships. Surface ships are limited to 1 movement hex per turn, which is fine. It's understandable. So the bottom line is, in those zones, nothing can be attacked or killed. Now, I say that with one caveat. submarines can still conduct submarine combat. So one sub can attack another sub. That's not a challenge there. But they have no clue as far as what is above them on the surface, and that is good because it leaves us with being able to move ships, or at least know your ships aren't going to be sunk for a turn for game day. So we rolled storms. That also affects his satellites. So now he can't place his satellites in any storm zone for his strategic detections. You can't fly strategic missions in those storm zones. So it was great. Second win for me is I rolled in the random events after I rolled winter for weather. Again, I got command failure, but this time it fell on the Soviets. And so he lost command control in Saudi Arabia, because I rolled a 4. Saudi Arabia, SL, which is Sri Lanka, PG, which is a Persian Gulf, and the Bay of Bengal. So let's look at this real quick as far as what happened to him. First of all, he gets a storm in the Gulf of Aden. All those aircraft in the Gulf of Aden are shut down, which is great. Socotra, Ras Karma, he still has aircraft available, and they are, well, they are something to deal with. In Persian Gulf, he has command failure, which is fantastic. Now, all of these bombers out of Baku and all these bombers out of Ashgabat and all his fighters out of Yazd and Kerman, these guys can't launch this round. So I've got a full turn where the only bomber he has available is out of Kabul, and it's this T-95H. Granted, it's a strong bomber, but it is the only one who's got to do anything for the next 3 game turns. Guess what? Diego Garcia shut down this turn. So I don't have any major long-range bombers either. So this little roll of events here, which was great, fell in my favor, and it gave me the opportunity to not worry about a bunch of bombers coming down to Diego Garcia and just flattening it and me losing all my aircraft, because that was my big worry. Repair phases went across the board on bases that could be repaired. You'll see Masira lost its damage marker. Salala is now a damage 2 again. And we go down. Diego Garcia is a damage 1 again. Between last game turn and this game turn, Airbase Destroyed was on the map. So somewhere we lost in translation between the save game. The Adu Atoll was destroyed, and I'm sorry, I don't know when or how, but needless to say, that's the way it is. The other thing you'll notice is there are a lot of no local detection or strategic detection markers anywhere. A couple there on the submarines. Nothing here in the Maldives. Nothing here in the East Indian Ocean. Nothing up here. Well, there's 2 detection markers here on his Task Force 1 and my Task Force 1, which is the rules here at the beginning of the turn, after we go through all the sequences of stuff. At the beginning, once you get through this stuff here, you do you perform your first activity cycle for the AM turn, and the first thing you do is local detection phase, and that's when we test all these subs. We roll to see if the subs find each other. Surface vessels automatically find each other if they are either in their limited, which is the zone directly around the surface craft, or they're extended, which is the ring of hexes, 1 more outside. So bottom line is both task forces are in their extended detection range, and we know where each other are. It's a good thing for him, not so great for me. The fortunate thing is the French have this beautiful South Arabian Sea zone that is blanketed with a storm. And if I can move into that storm zone, I can get my ships under cover of storms. And first of all, the detection is lost. Granted, I can't move as fast, but they might survive for the other ships to get down there, mate up with them, and form a stronger task force, especially the Brits. He did place his satellite on Task Force 8. And that's pretty much it. This is our setup for the new game turn. So we're just going to briefly look at this a second. I just wanted to show you how the setup fell fortunately for the Allies favored. Again, storms in the North and Arabian South sea zones. His carrier task force here is now limited to 1 space movement. My tankers can only move 1 hex per turn, but this Nogan is no longer able to target them and kill them. So there might be a chance that I can go 1, maybe pull these guys out and get them to their landing space. We'll see what happens. Down south in the Bay of Bengal, all of his task forces, the Indians and the Soviets, have just been slowed down, which gave a little bit of a breather for the Ranger here. Haven't placed a detection marker on the Ranger, but the Courage would definitely have found her, and so that needed to be done. It'll be in there in the new combat turns. You'll see things like that. So anyway, that's the setup. So let's move on to the next map real quick and not waste any more time here. All right, no log file, so we are still going to be rolling through my notes here, and I will tell you my notes are pretty limited for this series of game turns, but we see what happens, and it's pretty dramatic here. What happens here? First of all, let's look at the game turn track, and you'll see I won the initiative on the onset, and he then followed up with his submarines. But let's see what happened here. So first of all, I chose surface, and you'll see that the French now, who were over here in 2420 not long ago, moved 1, 2, 3 to 2721. Before they moved, though, they were in range of Task Force 1. So if we look at the French, let's see what happened. Huh. I didn't attack. His ships are good. So basically the French ran. Excuse me. The French hightailed it out of there. They moved quickly away with the goal, again, to link up with Task Force 2 here, which is the Brits. If I can merge those 2 task forces, I'll have 2 carriers in it and enough escorts that can potentially give the French a chance to survive. But we have this massive storm zone here between us, and I can only move 3. Task Force 2, as you saw there, okay, now unburdened of their amphibious assault vessels. They were up here. They moved down because they got a speed of 4 without the burden of their charges. So they went 1, 2, 3, 4, came down here. They're in close proximity to the French, but the South Arabian Sea zone, again, is a storm zone. So between us and them is a whole bunch of weather. So we either ride along the coast here or we push into the storm itself, which limits us on our speed. Of course, it could remove those local detection markers that these subs picked us up on. Task Force 4, which is the Lincoln Group, is now Task Force 3. As I said before, I like to reorganize my units just to make life easier to see, so I kind of cleared the lower lines and brought everything up. So the Lincoln Group is now Task Force 3. The Enterprise Group was Task Force 6. It's now Task Force 4, and Ranger is still Task Force 5. Do the same over here with my cap groups. Cleared out all these long lines of cap groups and just use the first 9 now because that's all I'm able to even launch due to either weather or availability of air bases. So anyway, that's what my surface vessels did. French moved quickly up here to the north. Task Force 3 moved south to start pushing its way out to sea. You're going to notice, though, his submarines are in direct contact with my ships, and the Brits moved down here to move closer to the French. That was my goal, is to move those guys close enough they can merge as one task force. Moving down to the right, or to the left, I should say, Task Force 4, which is the Enterprise Group, they broke off from the amphibious assault vessels so they could move at a speed of 4. By moving 4, I was able to get them just over Diego Garcia. So I figured if he's going to bring that T95H down out of Kabul, he's going to have to deal with my Tomcats, even out to a range of 1, 2, 3, 4 for Tomcats to intercept. Now remember, he doesn't have cruise missiles left. All he has left is bombing. So even if he brings that bomber down there and I have to attack him, that bomber has, let's go up to it real quickly to look. That bomber right here has an anti-air value of 1. Okay, so he is a 1. My Tomcats, on the other hand, going back to Diego, I'm rolling all around here. My Tomcats over Cap 4, where is it? The Enterprise. The Enterprise has 2 Tomcats up, and the Harrier actually would be over over the Tarawa. So that the 2 Tomcats would have 18, and they have an electronic warfare aircraft with them. So at 18, out to a range of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 18 divided by 4, which is, because I have full strength out to 2, half strength out to 3, quarter strength out to 4. 18 divided by 4 is what? We can put 4. It'd be 4 to 1. 4 to 1 odds, my attack on him. And if we look at the chart on the air combat, 4 to 1 odds on the attacker. Now on Cap, you can only go to a maximum of 3 to 1 odds. The only thing he could possibly do is send me home with a 0R, because I've got the EW unit in my grouping, because he can't get an electronic warfare that far south. I'd get a +2 to the die roll. So even if you rolled a 0, my +2 would take him to 2, which would give him 1 step of damage in a return. So bottom line, he's not even going to be able to think about bringing that aircraft down over Diego and hitting Diego Garcia with bombing. Cool. So that was the intention there. The bummer thing is, as I've talked about so many times here, is once more we see my ships moving back and forth, providing air cover for land bases that the F-15s should be in the air right now, not my F-14. The Navy's having to defend the Air Force's base. What are you going to do? Task Group 9 is now being encroached by these subs, and it is not a strong task force. All it is a couple of slow convoy vessels. 1, 2, 3, 4 slow convoy vessels and 2 fast frigates. I've got to get them to base. I want the fast frigates too, you know what I mean? The cool thing is, in Diego, I do have 2 fast frigates that were here. They moved out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they merged with the Enterprise group, strengthening her and bringing the Rourke and the Polar into the fast frigate group with the Enterprise, strengthening her escort ring. So that was cool. Down here, and this is where we start to see gloom for me. And you see the Ranger group, now Task Force 5, or still Task Force 5. They were right up here where they met the Accords. They had a local detection marker placed on them. The escorts, the amphibious assault vessels, are now all in Greater Nicobar. And I've got all these ships now as points, victory points, okay? Which is great. Great for my score. But the Ranger, which is a fantastic offensive unit, is now stuck and isolated by itself. And once she dumped, even the bummer thing is, once she even dumped the Essex, all these ships at least had a good close-in assault strength, right? And the Essex brought with her a Harrier jump jet that provided additional air cover over the Ranger group, which was great. But air attack's never been my worry for the Ranger. It has always been this swarm of subs, right? And it's exactly what he's done. He's imposed all of his subs on my position here. And unfortunately, we see that the Ranger isn't really strong in anti-sub. In fact, this combat supply ship isn't even really part of the mix. I've got the Waddell, the Haler, and the Gridley, and that's it. That's it. I don't think at this point, if and let's see, because this round is surface and subs. Maybe he even killed one of the ships I had in the group already. I went to the wrong map here. Let's look at the kill pile. Looking at my CGs, the Gates was killed at some point. I'd have to look at the original setup, but that might have been part of the Rangers group because it's a strong ASW number. And one thing we missed up here in the north is we were talking about my ships moving. Well, Scott called up his subs after the fact, and you will see here that either the Nogan or the Rykov made an attack on Task Force 3, and the Anzio was hit. And let's flip the Anzio. Anzio had a 9 ASW score. Scott has this wonderful tactic of moving in and killing the anti-sub killers. Great tactic. Who wouldn't do that? But that Anzio, that 9 value, took my anti-submarine warfare from 8 with the Lincoln, 9 with the Anzio was 17, and then 7 from the Hewitt or even the Ingersoll or the McCluskey or the McEnany, any one of these sub killer ships, 24 ASW strength. That is killer to employ against submarines. Anyway, he hit the Anzio and damaged her, weakening her. When you flip the subs, their offensive scores and even their defensive scores decline because they aren't as effective now. So anyway, the Anzio was hit up here. I think the Gates was killed down here. We'd have to look at previous game turns to actually look at the makeup of the Rangers task force. I can almost guarantee it wasn't just 3 escorts and the combat supply ship. I think it was 5. I think the Gates was with this group here, and she went down when these 3 subs came in to attack. They came in with a lot of, this guy's got 18 torpedo strength. This guy right here is 12, and this guy right here had 22. So a lot of torpedo strength to attack my group with, and the Gates was the highest at a 7, was the highest anti-sub ship there, and with his death, or her death I should say, the Ranger now is limited to 14 points of ASW. 6, 7, and neither one of these guys makes 14. So by killing the Gates, it would have taken me from 20 to 14. That's really depressing. Anyway, that's the first 2 action segments. His subs flocked in, swarmed in, I guess is a proper word, to kill my my Ranger group. Up here, the Baton Rouge was hit. So either the Shankus got a lucky shot in, or the Bengala. These task forces here, Task Group 3, Task Force 1, the Task Force 4, none of these guys could have done anything in this zone because the Bay of Bengal is a storm zone. So whoever hit this submarine here was another submarine. So he would have needed a 9. So he probably rolled a 9 on either the Shankus's attack or the Bengala's attack and hit the Baton Rouge. So he took a damage across surface vessels and submarine vessels, and that's pretty much it that happened in this turn. Let's bring up the next map here. All right, we do have a log file here we can go through. Like I said, my notes are kind of limited on this game turn, so I apologize if I'm going to be trying to figure out what we're looking at too. But we do have a log file here so we can see what happened. we start a new action segment, which means there was an initiative roll. Obviously, my counter went up first, which means I won the initiative again, which is cool. Air, we launch air. Now, with the end of the command failure up here, I've got access to all my aircraft again. Unfortunately, the Gulf of Aden is shut down, and truthfully, there's really nothing in the Gulf of Aden that I cared about. Over the Persian Gulf, we have some aircraft available now. It looks like the aircraft that I had in that Daman, the Tornadoes, I did not put them back up in cap. So my idea was to use these aircraft as bombers and fighter bombers. The cool thing about interceptors, they can perform two functions. They can either be interceptors, well, they can perform three functions, excuse me. They can be interceptors, purely air-to-air. They can be bombers, carrying out a bomber load out of 60 and 20 respectively, or they can be a combination fighter attack, and that reduces their air-to-air value and also reduces the bomber value, but they can perform both functions and serve as an ability to punch into some of these cap zones and kill some bases. You see, with his command failure, although he's got them up here on the map, he didn't take them down. Well, the cap are here, but he has no ability to launch bombers out of these zones. The cap can't affect each other, but when we look at his caps these rounds over Yads, he's got 17 points of combat air patrol there. Over Kerman, he's got 23 points or 22 points of air combat value. I'm not getting in there with with 9 or even 14 for that matter. So I'm not sure 100%. Maybe I was going to attack Shiraz. We'll see. I activated air this turn, so maybe we'll see what I planned here. So first of all, my S3 Viking launches off the Lincoln and attacks. And you understand, Gulf of Oman is not a storm zone. We're very close to a storm zone, but we are not. We can still operate aircraft here. Gulf of Oman. So we fly over the Noggin. It's got a 9 defense value. I don't even think I can hurt the Noggin. CRT 4 value. Even if I rolled a 9, it would be a 4. I can't even hurt this aircraft, and I might even say this. Not even sure I can damage you. Checking CRT. Never mind the attack. They didn't even launch. So that was pointless. My S3 Viking launches from the Ranger to attack the Oskol. Close range. We have location on this noisy nuclear sub here. We attack. I roll a 3. Of course I roll a 3. The S3 Vikings proved to be fruitless there. We do the dance from Indonesia's Georgetown and Singapore. My Ryans fly north to attack. Roll a 5, no effects. They land. So the Oskol goes undamaged, and the Ranger still has to deal with all these problems. In Dubai, my F-15s lift off. They head towards Abu Dhabi with the plan to link up with an attack raid there. So they pass over Abu Dhabi, and they pick up these Mirage 2000s from the United Arab Emirates, along with a U.S. electronic warfare aircraft. They fly south, and from a range of 2, I'm going to assume that is the closest I can get to his aircraft where his combat air patrol is at its strongest. So if we look at his Tbilisi, okay, the Tbilisi is task group 1. The Tbilisi has over it a total of 14 combat air patrol strength. The 2 7s there in the lower right on the Su-33s are his combat strength. So 14 points. I'm bringing in F-15s at 18 points. He is the attacker. I am the defender. Boom. Great. 14 to 18 because on his aircraft cap chart, no non-US air early warning, which he does have units in a CAP mission. So he can go out 2 hexes and get the full strength. So bottom line is I stop my aircraft there with the assumption that he is going to send his CAP out to defend. 14 to 18, and with the understanding that if he didn't want to do this, we'll look at it afterwards. It's a 1 to 2 ratio where the defender has a better chance. I also have an electronic warfare aircraft, which gives me a -2 to my die roll, which is fantastic. Click. He rolls, or yeah, -2 to his die roll because he's the attacker. His roll, he rolls a 1. Booyah! So let's see what a 1 does. On the 1 to 2 chart, a roll of 1, minusing out 2 for my electronic warfare. Let's see. If the defender has at least 1 electronic warfare, -2 from the roll. So a 1 becomes essentially a 0. And everything on the left of the column is attacker. Everything on the right is the defender. Results to the left of the slash are the attacker. Those to the right apply to the defender. So I am the defender. He's attacking me. So he gets 2 steps of damage and a return. Couldn't have been a better situation. So I just sent, his cap takes 2 steps of damage and an RTB. Boom, boom, boom. So my bombers make it through. His cap is shut down, RTB'd. I kill one of his S-33 wings, which weakens the Tbilisi's ability for combat air patrols. Such a great moment. My bomber will continue its attack, so we continue our flight now. Now that the air patrol over the Tbilisi is gone, I can fly in with my Mirages, and they have a 30 bombing strength. Truthfully, I don't see this being much of a success, but I wanted to bring my F-15s against his combat air patrol, because the next thing, now that these aircraft are no longer there, my A6s can launch and my F-18s can launch off of the Lincoln, and that's freaking amazing. Finally get some good things happening here. So I'm going to attack the Golovko with 25 and the Zazulya with 5. This is bombing attacks. You have 32 area air and a +3 for combat air on Golovko and a +6. Your task force +2 modifier is lost due to my electronic warfare in the attack, which is great. He rolls a 0. Okay, that's fantastic. Your result is a -3 for the column 32 to 41. So my first attack with 25 on Golovko is a 7, and that is a 4 result. The Golovko sinks. Now my 5 attack on the Zazulya is a 6, no effect. So my little Mirage unit, which I didn't expect to get anything through, punches a hole in his task force, sinks ship, and we land. Truthfully, it comes up as an end of log file. I don't know why I then didn't launch A6s from Task Force 3, which is the Lincoln. The Lincoln had F-18s available, A6s, and no electronic warfare. We could have sent surface-to-surface missile attack. Did I have range? So from the Lincoln, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was just out of range for the F-18s because they were range 8. The A6s could have gone, though. You want to talk about messing up. I could have put 60 points. At least one of the F-18s could have launched for 20. I could have done a 60-point surface to surface or air to surface missile attack on his group, and I could have even actually sent this S3 reconnaissance. No, yeah, it didn't take off. Remember, we said we canceled that flight. I could have put 80 points into him in surface to surface missile attack. I don't know why I didn't do that. Down here, the Enterprise. Didn't launch anything in the air. Really didn't have anything to attack. There were no detection markers on either of these subs, no detection markers on any of these subs. my S3 had nothing to choose from. So the Enterprise's aircraft, except to protect Diego, sat there. That was the end of the turn. That's the end of the log file. Let's bring up the next map. Okay, bring up the next map here, picking up where we left off. And I see what happened, why we went to an end of the log file there. It says here, that is a result of the Galapagos sinks. Now, this was on the last log file. This should have been part of my conversation a minute ago. We should have paid attention to this stuff I typed, but I didn't pay attention to it, so excuse me. But my units returned home. So the F-15 and the EA-6 Prowler and the Mirage, United Arab Emirates Mirage attack aircraft, they flew home. And then I typed here, I will stop it here and we can finish face to face. So we must have found some time that we could go to a face-to-face interaction via Discord. We do that when we are able to, instead of having to do log files. So bottom line is we look at the results here, and I'm going to show you the Callinan is way over here, damaged. And the Callinan was part of Task Force 1. Let's look at his stuff here. Task Force 1. Well, maybe not. Task Force 3 is weakened. Task Force 1 is still pretty strong. I don't have the to compare it to the previous file. Bottom line is, as you can see, the aircraft are RTB'd here, and I did launch that strike with my A6s and my S3 Viking probably flew. The one F-18 would have flown. With mid-air refuel, they would have made it. Okay, so this particular, first of all, this particular map is not a log file, but it covers action segments 3 through 5. Okay, so a lot of stuff happened on this engagement here. So I'm going to assume that we flew and attacked Task Force 1, and for whatever reason, my rolls were a flub because they did not come through, or I made the attack instead against Task Force 3 and put enough points into the Callinan to hit her hard and damage her. Because the air cover's gone, first of all, we're going to talk about his task force here in a second, but he then separated the Callinan from whether it was with Task Force 4 or whether it was from Task Force 3. But as you can see here, he raced Task Force 3 back under his air-to-air cover from Ras Karma. Fine by me, dude. Send your slow convoys in the other direction. I want to keep you from getting victory points as much as possible. So, but over here, Task Force 2 has moved down. She's almost in range of delivering her slow convoys. So let's go to the turn track here a minute. We're going to see that I moved surface, he moved his subs. Of course, we already saw that stuff. Then the air log file, which we just watched go through. He then moved surface, and then I moved subs. So let's continue to look here. He moved surface. His surface craft pushed the Tbilisi task group, even without its combat air patrol, pushed further towards the French and decimated the French task force. If you look here, all we have left is the Dugwai, I don't know what the full name of this ship is, Trouville or something like Dugwai 2, Trouville or something like that. But the rest of my ships, the Clemenceau, the Jean Bart, the Duquesne, all of my French aircraft, the Super Étendard and the Raphael, along with my Elise air early warning aircraft that was on with Clemenceau, all of them are at the bottom of the sea. Okay, and that was depressing. I lost a task. The French lost their task force, their carrier. That's one carrier down of my 5 that I started with. Scott was really pleased with himself at this point. The loss of his combat air patrol is concerning to him. I know it is, because in the next few turns we're going to see whether he turns tail and runs. But I just it was demoralizing to lose even if it was just the smaller French task force. I don't know, man. I just wanted to get them together, merge with the Brits, and form a stronger, finally consolidate these warships, and bring the punch that I knew they had to him, and start getting some offensive kills instead of this constant running to our locations that we did there. Going down here, our subs engaged. He brought in a task force 2, these Indians. Let's go to the Indian Task Force 2 group. The Gomet, the flotillas 1, 2, and 3. He brought those off the coast of India and out to the Chagos Archipelago. I think that was a big mistake on his part, and we'll see why as they continue to move in closer and I find them, and then my aircraft off the Enterprise are able to decimate them, and that is a very cool thing, and he'll learn about that here shortly. Not to give things away a lot, but I'll tell you, seeing targets of opportunity is a great thing. And we already talked about his subs moving in here and killing the gates, which was part of the Rangers group, so we don't need to go into further into that. We talked about the subs, we talked about my air, we talked about his surface. My subs, obviously doing the dance that they're doing, had no one to attack here in the Chagos Archipelago, so I moved them closer to his submarines to see if we could find each other. Again, the same situation here. Even as he's moving on Task Group 9, I brought my subs in closer to try and locate him. The Baton Rouge did take a snapshot off, and we already hit the Apakov. The Sea Lion and the Baton Rouge both combined were trying to kill the Apakov. We missed. Nothing else to speak of there, and nothing really to speak of here. His Krylenko is still alive and well. I'm bringing my subs up here to help against the Rykov and his Nogan. He's bringing it over the Rosoko. All these subs are on their way to interdict themselves between me and heading out to sea. And I think there's one other one over here, the Baykal, which was a strong attack ship. Can't find it. You can see here Task Group 12 is finally just off Kuwait City. Those ships will make it no problem. That's a good sign. The other task group 8, which is also made up of empty tankers, they've got to get to Bahrain. There's not much left to stop them. He still has the Chaika, and he still has the Sindvaj, but at the and he also has strategic detection on this group. But still, I have a feeling of confidence that I can get them up there, especially with all the Task Force 10 and 11 right off these 2 subs here. Anyway, that's pretty much that map. I'm going to not hang on this much more. We're at 43 minutes. Let's look at the last map and look at the end of game turn 7, the AM cycle. So hold on one second. We're still here on the same map. I did not change anything yet. One thing I want to point out that's pretty critical with this, the Seawolf had moved in the previous turn to close on the Pakistani border. I don't know if anybody remembers that from last video. But I see here that there's a damage 1 on Kabul. Why is that good? Well, or how did that happen? First of all, the Seawolf had cruise missiles left. So we go to logistics. She's only used 1 of them, so she launched her cruise missiles against Kabul. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 hexes, and then 12 more to get to Kabul itself is 23 hexes. U.S. Cruise missiles can fly 25. Had a success, obviously. We didn't bring that up. So bottom line is Kabul was hit with a cruise missile strike in the AM turn of this game. Why is this important? Well, it's important because that was his last bomber group that he had available in this particular day. Everything else was command failured, or the storms are keeping them on the tarmac. So I knew that I was bringing Seawolf in to do that attack from the previous turn, but I'd forgotten that I had done it without notes. But bottom line is we see that Kabul was hit with a cruise missile strike. That is the cool thing that's going to give Diego Garcia a full turn, full game day to get to the evening cycle, repair that airfield, get that damage one off there, and those F-15s can go back up and be back on cap, and can and have a defense over Diego Garcia. I have Orions operating out of Diego Garcia now. I have B-52s, and I have two F-111 squadrons that came out of Singapore and Georgetown. You're allowed to have 4 total combat aircraft in there, and that's what we have with the bomber, the interceptors, 4 total. Okay, the reconnaissance aircraft are considered auxiliary, so they do not add to the stacking limits of a base, which is cool. So Diego will be operational here at the end of the day. No threats coming from anybody except for the Balkash here, which I think still has 1 cruise missile attack. So that's all he's got left to threaten me, to keep this base unoperable for another turn or another game day. So we'll see what happens there. But the thing is, with the hit of my submarines on the Balkash, or from the Seawolf onto Kabul, his aircraft are pretty much all but down. All he has left is air, and I can tell you right now, I was just looking at it, and this is the reason why we came back to this map, is to point this out. We went from his aircraft right into action segment 1 as a face-to-face file. It's a save game, so I don't even have anything to speak of that he did with aircraft except for one thing. And you'll see that in the next game map we pull up, which will actually be in the next video. But Ras Karma launched its bombers and hit Salalah again. Salalah is at the start of the next game turn. The next game in our next video, when I bring it up, it's going to show the effects of his aircraft. And the only thing I could find that he had, because again, I apologize, I had no notes for this cycle of turns, is that Salalah was damaged again. Really, that's the only thing that was operational for him. The Aden zone is shut down due to storms. The Persian Gulf zone is shut down due to command failure. And my Tomahawk strike on Afghanistan, on the Kabul air base there in Afghanistan, put an end to his ability to launch any offensive attacks there. The only thing he really has is Kamran here, which has bombers, which is great. He doesn't employ them this turn because even though he's got bombers, and even though he's got a target here with the Ranger to bomb the Ranger, none of those aircraft there have any they do they have a surface-to-surface missile strike of 100, but he still has to bring them in, and he's got a range of 3, so he'd have to bring them in here to at the limit 3869 to do a 1-2-3 airstrike against my Ranger group. I still would have had the combat air patrol up, and they would have been at half strength, and I would have had 8-2, which is what? 8-2 would have been 3-1 or 1-3 odds again, or 3-1 odds as attacker. And I think the Ranger even has her EW up. Let's see, the Ranger. Yep, she had her EW, her electronic warfare aircraft, her prowlers up. So even if you brought in his prowlers, they would have negated each other. I would have had the 3-1 odds, and he would have lost aircraft. There's no way he would. It just it comes down to points at this point, and also it comes down to assets that you don't want to just throw away. So even though he's got the Ranger on the ropes, he's not going to kill her with bombers. It's going to be these damned subs of his that he keeps pursuing me with. And now that he's damaged this task force, and damaged the Ranger to boot, my speed went from being a 4. Oh, it is. I guess it's in the onset of the new turn that he damages the Ranger. Sorry, guys. Spoiler alert. Anyway, we all know it's coming. It's inevitable at this point. Bottom line is that's the end of the game turn. In terms of game turn 7, we will start with game turn 8 in the next video, picking up at the beginning there, even though the next file actually also includes his air attacks from this game cycle. So anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate the attention to these videos. If you like what you're watching, give it a thumbs up. If you want to post me at any sites that are Wargamer sites, I appreciate that. I keep seeing my videos showing up on different Facebook Wargamer pages, and that's really nice. I appreciate the ads, and I appreciate the interest. All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.